You may be seated, and we still have much more to go, but this is encouraging when you see the type of leaders that we now have rising here in Washington, D.C. I recently spoke at an event called Making Families Great Again, the role of family and marriage in modern society. Now, this was not unusual for a pro-family group to be a part of. What was unusual was the sponsor. It was the Embassy of Hungary. Now, the relatively small nation of Hungary, has a population of about 10 million, has emerged in recent years under the leadership of the Prime Minister, Viktor Orban, as an international leader in promoting family policies. Now, Hungary, like many developed countries, faced a demographic crisis brought on by declining birth rates. However, in less than a decade, they have turned around with a range of policies that encourage couples to have children within marriage. Now, I commend the Hungarians for putting in their constitution, they put in their constitution the definition of marriage as the union of a man and a woman. And that came despite even our own government's opposition under the previous administration. They also put into their constitution the recognition of human life as beginning at conception. Additionally, I'm grateful to Hungary for its commitment to religious liberty and the defense of persecuted Christians around the world through their Hungary Helps initiative. They have provided, in fact, they're leading the way on this in providing aid to churches in the Middle East, the NGOs and the communities there where millions have been forced to leave their homes. They've been setting an example for nations that have a lot more resources by going in and helping rebuild homes for the Christians in that region of the world. And that's why I'm pleased today that to tell you we have Peter Szijjártó. He's Hungary's Minister of Foreign Affairs and Trade, and he's been in that position since 2014. He previously served as the Prime Minister's spokesman and Minister of State for Foreign Affairs and External Economic Relations in the Minister's office. He is currently also serving his 5th term as a member of the Parliament. Last summer, he was here in Washington, D.C., representing Hungary in the ministerial that was mentioned earlier at the State Department. It was the first ever ministerial to advance religious freedom. He was one of the first to speak when the various governments had an opportunity, and he was outspoken in their defense of the persecuted church around the world. And again, they are leading the way. He is a Roman Catholic. He's married with 2 sons. Please help me welcome Peter Szijjártó.
Thank you for the invitation. Happy to be here. Thank you. It's a privilege. Thanks. There or here?
You're going to sit?
Yeah. Good afternoon to all of you. I appreciate the invitation. It's really an honor to be here among friends. That has been a great week for us Hungarians, and for us Hungarians who believe in friendship between these 2 wonderful countries. As our Prime Minister has returned to White House after 18 years and was received by your President, who called him as a twin. And I can tell you that during the meeting, we could feel the very friendly and relaxed atmosphere. And maybe if I can give you this inside information, during the introduction of mine, it was said that in our Constitution, it is being written that marriage can be made between 1 man and 1 woman, and that was pretty much applauded by your President. So we are happy with that. But I'm here. I was invited and instructed, by the way, to speak about the current situation in Europe, as European Union is approaching European Parliament elections, which is going to be a decisive one. I can tell you that there are historic challenges ahead of the European Union. And given these historic challenges, it is obvious that we have very, very tough debates in EU about which way to go forward. The problem is not the debate itself. The problem is that during this debate, everybody who represents not a mainstream position will be attacked immediately. will be stigmatized, will be considered as a killer of the European unity, and of course stigmatized as non-European. But I don't think I have to tell you too much about pressure against those who represent non-mainstream position. Currently, the mainstream in the European Union wants European Union to be socialist, wants European Union to be far away of heritage, wants European Union to be fled by migrants, illegally if possible, and mainstream in Europe thinks that if you speak about EU being a Christian, is something that refers back to the darkest dictatorships of the last century. Now, in this regard, I have to tell you that we still have the hope, because there is a region in Europe, the Central European region, which represents common sense when it comes to when it comes to security, when it comes to economy, and when it comes to heritage, be it culture or religious. In Europe currently, the European Commission has been performing the poorest and the worst achievement and performance ever in the history of the European Union. There were 1.5 million illegal migrants entering the territory of European Union without any kind of control, without any kind of check, without anyone asking them, so who are you? What are your plans here? What have you done in your past? How you want to make living here? No one. And those countries who were outspoken against that were immediately stigmatized and attacked by international liberal mainstream media. There was a very, very clear expectation and demand on behalf of the Hungarian people to stop illegal migration to Hungary. And based on that, the Hungarian government has built a fence, not a wall, but I mean, we are a small country, a fence on the southern border, 550-kilometer long border, which is now protected by a fence, protected by military, and protected by police. And since we have erected that fence, 0 illegal migrants enter the territory of our country. 0. And we will keep on doing that. You cannot imagine the attacks. You cannot imagine the bad words which were used on us back in 2015. But now, who have said that? Partly, we don't remember their names. Partly, they are in position, but they are speaking about the necessity to protect external borders as if they had said the same things for the last decades. And we all know, and your president knows it very well, politics is not a profession where you get credits or mercy. So we are pretty sure that none of these politicians will say ever that you were right, I was wrong, and I apologize to you. This definitely is not going to be said at all. When it comes to migration, I can tell you, my friends, that in the western part of Europe, parallel societies have been created. Those are not mixed societies. Those are not multicultural societies. Those are parallel societies. And a parallel society does have huge security risks. Since this migration crisis, there were 33 major terrorist attacks committed in Europe, killing 330 and injuring like 1,300. In Europe, that was not the case. And we cannot accept those politician statements who say that, well, terrorism is part of metropolitan life. No, we don't accept that. It's not. It's a matter of weakness of some political, I wouldn't say leaders, but actors in this regard. I can tell you that we are a government which is proud of the Christian heritage of its country. And we speak about that. And we speak about that. We are brave enough to speak about that because our first saint king has offered our country to Mary the Virgin back more than 1,000 years ago. So we have put into our constitution that we recognize the role of Christianity playing in creating the statehood of ours. And the constitution itself starts with the word God, saying, God bless Hungarians. You cannot imagine how many attacks and how severe attacks we have received beyond that from your former administration, by the way. Hillary Clinton even wrote a letter to the Prime Minister bashing us, how we can afford such kind of things. So when my Prime Minister told your president during the meeting on Monday that, President, there's one person who is more interested in you winning your next election than yourself, then your president asked, tell me who is that? And said, it's myself. Because we know very well that if the Democrats return in this country, we will be a matter of revenge, for sure. And we don't want to experience that. When it comes to Christianity, I'd like to tell you something. We think that we all should stand up against that perception which suggests as if Christianophobia would be the last acceptable form of discrimination. We have to speak about that openly and honestly. And we have to admit that Christianity is the most persecuted religion on earth. Because 4 of all 5 persons who are attacked because of his or her religion are Christians. And why don't we speak about that? I have a very good friend, foreign minister of Turkey, a Muslim person, Mevlut Çavuşoğlu. I always envy him, speaking about the need to protect Muslim communities all over the world with a huge enthusiasm. Why we Christians don't do that? Why we are afraid of that? Why we are not brave enough to do so? In Hungary we do it. In Hungary we do it. And definitely, that is against the mainstream in Europe. And this is one of the most common points between your administration and our government, that we speak honestly about this issue. We have established a separate state secretariat in our government, which has only one thing to do: to monitor the destiny and the situation of the Christian communities all over the world. And if something wrong happens, stand up immediately, speak up immediately, and give money immediately. We have helped 35,000 Christians to return to places in the Middle East from where they had to escape. Their leaders, the bishops, be them Orthodox or Roman or Maronite, come to us and beg us, please, do not inspire our members to leave where we have been living, because then you will contribute to the initiative of the terrorist organizations who would like to eliminate our communities. So we have helped 35,000 to stay there. Last week I have inaugurated the first part, for example, of our program in Lebanon, in the framework of which we have rebuilt, based on government money in Hungary, budget money. We have reconstructed 14 Christian churches in Lebanon. We continue with 19 other one. We cover expenditures of hospitals, Christian ones, in Syria. We support, we finance the humanitarian activities of the Christian churches over there. We build homes for the Christian orphans. We rebuild their schools for the Christian kids. And I think we Christians should do that, because this is our responsibility. So it's not a big amount of money, because see, we have spent $30 million so far, which is not a big amount of money. But I mean, if you give it directly, if you don't give it through international organizations, you give it directly to the churches, that definitely helps, and that proves to be pretty effective, I can tell you. So in Europe currently, socialism is being built, unfortunately, in the western part of Europe. And we Central Europeans are standing there and just simply don't understand how these people can think that socialism can be to the benefit of the people. My country had to live 40 years under communist regime. 40 years. And we know what it means. We know what it means that when our freedom is being taken away, when we cannot practice our own religion, when we cannot travel, when we cannot think freely. And now socialism is kind of in the dreams of the Western European countries. They want tax harmonization in the European Union. We have the lowest tax rates of Europe. Lowest tax rates, flat tax, 9% corporate income, 15% on the personal income, and no inheritance tax. But there are countries in the western part of Europe who prove to be not competitive because their leaders were not brave enough to carry out those structural reforms which are necessary in order to be able to cut taxes, because cutting taxes is not coming from out of the blue. It's not coming from scratch. You have to be very disciplined when it comes to budgetary and fiscal perspective. But if a leader or a political actor, let's put it this way, is not capable to do so, then what's the answer from western part of Europe? Let's ruin the competitiveness of those ones who were brave enough. On the other hand, I have to tell you that we Hungarians are proud promoters and supporters of the EU-US cooperation. And I have to tell you that what happened in Europe after your president has been elected is a shame. Is a shame. There was a huge attack on your president on behalf of the European liberal media. There was a huge attack on your president by the liberal political elite. Imagine, we foreign ministers of the European Union were convened for an extraordinary meeting 5 days after your presidential election. And they asked, so, I mean, what for? What should we do there? This poor guy was elected, hasn't done anything, is not in office, and then we come together to bash him? Why so? So it was the Foreign Secretary of UK, Boris Johnson at that time, and myself not attending, because why should we do so? And I can tell you, that under the former administration of yours, I'm not of the United States, under the former administration, there were basically weekly attempts to interfere into our domestic issues in Hungary. And with the election of President Trump, that has been cut. And that's why we are very thankful to him. Now, when it comes to the financial and economic issues in the European Union, just let me tell you one thing. The UK is leaving the European Union. You must know about that, or they're supposed to leave at least. And you know, the whole European Commission is downgrading and downscaling the significance of this issue. And I can tell you that this can harm the European competitiveness by far. UK is representing 14%, 1/7 of the economic performance of the European Union. It's the second largest economy of EU, 5th largest of the world. Security Council member, nuclear power, biggest army of European Union, and the most effective secret service, I mean intelligence. And we will lose it. And you know, European Commission behaves like, you know, who cares? You know, we are European Commission, we're living in an ivory tower in Brussels, who cares about the member states? So I think that now as we are approaching European Parliament elections, it's gonna be decisive which way we will go. The biggest party group in the European Union is called European People's Party. That used to be a Christian Democratic Party group, but they had been too long in a coalition with the Socialists in the European Parliament, and the Socialists formed a little bit more the personality of the People's Party than on the other way around, unfortunately. So they want to open up to the left. We definitely want European People's Party open up to the right. And the patriotic Christian conservative parties should work together in order to build a much stronger European Union, because we do believe that European Union is going to be strong if it respects its member states, if it respects its Christian past and future, and if it respects the European nations. Otherwise, we will end up in a situation where we will be a totally not competitive continent, full of migrants, staying away, very far away from our heritage and where we are coming from. And this is something that we would like to avoid. And I really do believe that if the rightist, patriotic, conservative parties win the election in European Union, that's going to be much better for the EU-US cooperation, which we will always promote. Thank you very much for the invitation. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you. Have a seat over here? Yeah. Minister Szijjártó has agreed to take a few questions, so if you have a question, raise your hand. I have a microphone. I want to ask you about one of the policies that you have to encourage an increase in the birth rate. I understand a mother that has 4 children has no tax on income for life. Is that right?
Yeah.
Can I move to Hungary?
What? And be a mother?
No, but I got a mother. I have 5 kids. How does that work?
You know, I have to tell you that Europe faces tremendous challenges when it comes to labor market and when it comes to demography. And there's a debate whether migrants should be the solution for that or family. And our approach is simple. We don't need migrants to overcome these challenges, but we have to support our own families. So we have a system where the state subsidy does not come in a form of cash, but it comes in a form of tax exemption. So basically, if a mother gives birth to 4 kids, she is exempt from paying income tax for her entire life. If a married couple does have a bank loan, and during the repayment period they got 3 children, then the state takes over the repayment. When there's a family with more than 3 kids and want to buy a car, which can deliver the whole family in the meantime, we give 7,500 euros, which is like $9,000 to $10,000 as a cash incentive to be able to buy that given car. If the mother and the father decides to go back to work after giving birth to the kid, then the child care subsidy can be taken advantage by one of the grandparents to stay, if they are not pensioners, to stay at home with the kids. So if you have 3 kids, then you got so much tax exemption that by the age of 18 of them, you basically don't pay personal income tax. And I really do believe that it works, since fertility rate has increased from 1.2 to 1.55 since we have been in office, which is not enough yet, but I mean a very significant increase.
Very interesting.
Thank you very much for your informative talk. Mine, it's not on the family issue, so it's a real departure from the last conversation. It's really the economic issue. I was deeply involved in the Republic of Poland in some oil and gas ventures there. We had a great time there, but there's a significant impact on your economy through the gas industry in Hungary. Could you just give me an update on that? And do you still have a lot of influence from Gazprom or Romgas, and how does that work into your kind of free economy, and how tight are you, and what are those Soviet or the Russian controls on you guys, because you've got significant reserves for energy independence in Central Europe, and you're to be applauded for what you're doing.
Thank you so much. I can tell you that currently, because of history and because of infrastructure, we can only buy gas from Russia. And you know, whenever we want to make anything in order to diversify, then those projects are being killed. And now it depends on the United States whether we can diversify or not, because the ExxonMobil does have the right to exploit gas from the Romanian offshore gas fields. We have built the infrastructure to be able to buy from there. So if ExxonMobil is ready to make a decision and start exploiting, this is going to be the first time we're going to be independent or not totally exposed to Russian gas. But if I can just say something regarding Russia, because I have to tell you that the best speech ever given by your president, given by a politician, was, of course, usually by my prime minister, but there was a competitive one by your president during the last NATO summit, when he urged European partners to invest more in their defense activities, which is legitimate, we do it. And he was speaking about Russia, you know. And I can tell you the following. The Western European countries have as tight relationship with Russia as no one else. The German-Russian trade has increased by 20% last year, only last year 20%, and amounted to 61 billion euros. There is now a gas pipeline called Nord Stream 2 being built between Russia and Germany. And who builds that? The biggest French, the biggest Dutch, and the biggest German energy companies together with Gazprom. Last year on the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum, who was the star guest? President Macron. So these Western European friends of ours, who usually bash us Hungarians to be spies of Putin, you know, to be spies of the Russians, having too close, 40 years under communism, and we, you know, these countries bash Russia above the surface, but make enormous businesses with Russia under the surface. You had to be aware of that. And if you ask me about China, that's exactly the same.
Frank Gaffney.
Minister, thank you so much for being here. I wanted to tell you I'm working with a new initiative called Save the Persecuted Christians. And last year we were honored to recognize the great work that you all are doing, including one of your deputy ministers, I believe, was with us for the occasion. Could you just talk a little bit about what Hungary is doing directly to try to alleviate the suffering of Christians in the Middle East, and the necessity of the rest of these governments that profess to be concerned about religious freedom following your example?
Thank you, thank you. You know, it's not very complicated, rather very simple. The bishops come to Budapest. We ask them how we can help. They tell us, and we give them the money. So it's not very complicated. Because this, I think this is the key. Seriously, I think this is the key. Because if you do it through international organizations, you do it through mediators, then number one, part of the money will get lost, part of the projects will get lost, then this person A speaks to person B, but through person C, and then half of information. No, they come to Budapest, they tell us they need to rebuild 2 of their schools because otherwise they cannot attract the families to come back. So how much it costs? €1 million. Okay, here you are. And you know, we have only spent $30 million, with which we had 35,000 to return. You know, so I mean, if you do it, I mean, directly, this really pays off. But if I can just tell you one very short story about the hypocrisy in Europe in this regard, hypocrisy and double standards and political correctness, that whenever we come together, European Union foreign ministers, and if we have some times outside of bashing your president, then we usually speak about Middle East, as if we had any kind of influence, by the way, but we speak about it because we have to speak about something. And we speak about the Middle East, and I always argue in favor of having a reference to the Christian communities in need and the necessity that Europe steps up for that. And then, you know, the High Commissioner and the world say, oh, Peter, I mean, you know, you should be more careful because, you know, it's so sensitive. Let's say religious minorities. And I said, why should I? I mean Christian communities. Why should I say religious minorities? I don't mean that. But if you look at the documents of international organizations, show me one. Show me one where Christian communities are written. None. And that's why I think you, as the #1 superpower of the world, has a huge responsibility in that. And we are so proud and happy, I have to tell you, so happy to see your president, your administration, Ambassador Brownback, speak about that, act according to that, you know, and we support that, we are on board. But I mean, you are the game changers. You are the flagship. We are a small boat. We will always swim behind you, but we need a flagship in that. And I really would like to show respect to you to support your president in these endeavors.
Thank you, Minister. I'm Kelly Kullberg with the American Association of Evangelicals. And Hungary was able to pass legislation liberating your nation from many culturally destructive programs of George Soros, Georgi Schwartz. And there's some exposure on this at AmericanEvangelicals.org. My question is, do you have advice for us in America how we might do the same?
Well, I can tell you that George Soros has a totally different vision about the future of Hungary and about the future of Europe compared to what we have as a vision. His vision is a Europe which forgets about its heritage, forgets about its Judeo-Christian values, forgets about national identities, is full of migrants, and it doesn't matter where you are from, you are European, period. And we have a totally different approach. And he finances with millions or even more dollars, so-called NGOs, in Hungary, you know, to go against the government, to promote illegal migration, to tell people where they can sneak into the country. And this is totally against our national interest. We made a law. The law says that if you promote activities against national interest and national security of the country, then it has some consequences. Of course, whole European Union, liberal media, CNN, jumping on us and you know, portraying us as the worst Nazi dictatorship ever. And I can tell you that we are being stigmatized as anti-Semitic. We who have announced zero tolerance against anti-Semitism. We who will host the Maccabi Games this summer. We who do not only finance reconstruction of synagogues in Hungary, but in the neighboring countries because they don't finance it. We, where if you have a Jewish cultural festival, you will see no guards with weapons because there's no need for it. In Budapest, the biggest European synagogue and one of the biggest European Catholic cathedrals are within walking distance. That shows how we live together, you know. And then we are portrayed as anti-Semitic because of having a debate with George Soros. But come on, we don't care what kind of religion he does have. He's a person with whom we have a debate. And referring to his religion, that's anti-Semitism. That's anti-Semitism because we never care about the religion of anyone who would be our friend or would be our opponent. Never. And that's why I cannot accept it. So how we have done it was regulation, strict regulation, very strict regulation, and only following national interest. You know, the election of your president, that's why your election of your president was refreshing to us. Because before he had been elected, if you said in Europe that you follow your national interest, for you, your country is the first, you were immediately bashed, saying that, you know, you are nationalist, fascist, whatever. And then after your president being elected, saying America first, you know, which was hysterically taken in Europe. I even asked my fellow foreign ministers, okay, I understand you create hysteria around the American president saying America first. I have two questions to you. What should he say? What is first? And my second question, America is number what, if not number one? What do you think about according to you? And so it's really crazy. And since he says America first, we can say Hungary first without a problem. And why wouldn't we say that? And maybe I think this is the ground of common understanding between the two leaders, the administration of yours and the government of ours, the parties, that we all are patriots. And for the patriots, homeland is number one. And it means that you respect others and don't interfere because you respect the others consider themselves as number one. So that's why we are very happy with this administration.
Minister Szijjártó, thank you so much for coming today and speaking with us and sharing time and taking our questions. We're very grateful for what Hungary is doing. Please express our appreciation to the Prime Minister for leading out. He's hosted a number of pro-family, conservative conferences there internationally, and we're grateful for your leadership.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the invitation. Thanks for listening to me. Thank you. For invitation. I was happy to be here and honored in the meantime.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Again, America leads as we provide space for others to do what they want to do. And so we're grateful to see a lot of this taking place in your